My name is Stevan Tomich. I go by Stev for short. Originally from Northwest Indiana. I was like to joke, the eastern suburbs of Chicago. Went to pharmacy school at Butler University, big Butler Bulldogs fan. And from there, I did a fellowship at Eli Lilly and Company in global public policy. Did that for about a year and then transitioned to a marketing role. So I was working in global marketing as the team progressed to US to get close to launch. I joined the US team. And after a few years, I enjoyed the marketing role, but my then girlfriend, now wife, was based in Chicago, and it's a long drive. They've done the 65 to Chicago drive. So fortunately, there was an opening to become an MSL, and I always wanted to add field experience to my career experience. So I transitioned to an MSL covering what was then diabetes and slowly growing into cardiometabolics. I've seen some cardiologists, a lot of endocrinologists, primary care doctors, and so on. After that role for a few years, I transitioned to a small startup called Xeris Pharmaceuticals, where I had a hybrid role. We did a little bit of everything in medical affairs, from being in the field, some companies would call some outcomes liaison work, as well as MSL work, as well as some general medical affairs work. It was a fun time and a great company to be at. And most recently, I transitioned to an in-house role in medical affairs, where I'm the assistant scientific director at AbbVie Pharmaceuticals. I work a lot in medical education, specifically doing a lot with digital assets.
Yeah, so I mean, what an amazing career path you've gone on, and I mean, a lot of people out there look up to you and your career, and are like, gosh, how do I follow in his footsteps? Is that kind of what drives you, makes you interested in being wanting to be a career mentor? Can you kind of walk us through, kind of why you want to be a coach, or why you are a coach?
Yeah. Well, definitely along the way, it wasn't with lack of help and reaching out to a lot of people. So I definitely was coached along the way, and something I always wanted to give back and be able to help more people. And it's not always easy to find people, especially with the industry side, that kind of set aside time for coaching. So I'm trying to help that and be able to help those people along the way. I was fortunate to have a more diverse career path than usual. So not recommending as the best path, but I was able to see a lot of the different areas within industry. And through those roles, we also partner with a lot of people. So industry is not always, it's always looked at as just working with big pharma companies. So there's medical communication agencies, there's clinical research organizations, anything along those lines. I was able to interact with through being in commercial medical field, big companies, small companies. So I'd love the opportunity to help coach people and find out where they could really have their skills shine.
That's great. And what is it really about, like, the mentorship that you really enjoy most?
Just to put it down to just one item, but just helping people really get past that step of thinking, could I do this, to that I can do this, to I did do this. So seeing people make that big transition. People always want to do it, but they feel, and it's not what they outwardly always say, but they can't do it, or they won't be able to do it. And getting them past that hurdle is something I really look forward to, and really look forward to trying to help more and more people cross.
That's great. And I know you've helped a lot of pharmacists, make that transition into industry. Can you think of, like, one example in particular that kind of stands out?
I think one example that stands out is one of my best friends was working in the clinical setting in the hospital and wasn't sure that they even wanted to do industry. And it's quite the process of, almost coaching them into wanting to make the transition, just knowing their skill set, knowing what they really wanted, and wasn't afraid, or wasn't that their urge wasn't there to do more. It was more of almost not knowing what they could do. And I think getting through that process and showing them that they could do this, and continuing to talk with them and explain, what I like so far and what I foresee career going, and then getting them to transition over, and then for a little bit to be coworkers, so to be able to, help your best friend be a coworker with you. And now, we're still in different companies. It's nice to have that extra person in your network to help learn from.
That's great. And so what role did he end up accepting in industry?
He went to regulatory sciences role. So it was a nice transition to take some of that clinical detailed knowledge and make sure that follows the path so the pharmaceutical company can get everything it needs to get from the government to make sure that the product is approved appropriately, and how it's approved dictates which patients and how many patients it can help.
Oh, wow. That's great. And, I guess people probably ask you, I'll ask you here. So like, what is the best way, in your opinion, for one candidate to stand out over another candidate?
I think one of the biggest things is really doing your homework onto why you want the job. I know a lot of people and a lot of pharmacists, they don't like their current job, and their big reason why they're looking is because they don't like their current job. And that's great. But as a hiring manager, not liking your old job is not something that they really want to hear. So understanding like why you want this job and why this is going to change your overall motivation and what you want to do and how you're going to be of value to that person.
That's good. And then for those that are maybe watching this and they're interested in kind of following in your footsteps, but don't have a fellowship, I guess if you had to give some sort of general high level advice or strategy in getting into industry, what would you kind of advise those folks?
I think the first thing is to really learn about all the different facets there are within industry, and then kind of narrow it down from there. So if you really understand some of the options that appeal to you, and some of those options may appeal because of the type of work, but also your abilities to be either geoflexible, travel during work, commute to an office, all depends on what you're looking for. But if you first define those characteristics and then look forward to what type of role, I think understanding those roles make it easier to connect with others, explain why you want that role, and expound your knowledge to really stand out in that interview.
That's good. And then for those that maybe have been, trying for a while, they're, they're growing discouraged. Do you have any kind of words of encouragement, for those out there that are having a difficult time right now, the job market?
Yeah. Just because you have a fellowship or you go through doesn't mean if you get this job. I went through 5 interviews, made it to the final round, didn't get my job multiple times, and learned throughout the way. And help people from that and from that learning to say like, you can keep going, you're going to do it. And it doesn't matter. Sometimes it's just the right timing and right place, and couldn't be happier with where I am right now. So I think everything worked out for the best that way.
No, that's great. Well, really appreciate your time and sharing that. I guess, is there anything else, any kind of final words of wisdom you'd like to share or thoughts?
I think biggest words of wisdom is don't be limited to what you hear, and that with your pharmacy degree is no longer, when you transition to this, a specific license to do one thing. You're not, fortunately, not competing against only pharmacists, good and bad. So use that PharmD to stick out, and that clinical knowledge or that knowledge you have, make sure you use that to stick out and be different and stand out in that candidate pool. And know that it doesn't have to say PharmD required or PharmD necessary for the job. And sometimes that makes you even a more valuable candidate because you have that, not everyone else does.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you, sitting down there with me and sharing that. So thanks again.
No problem. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.